Hi everybody, this is a video that's going to introduce our class here, our research methods class. And I'm going to introduce myself. So I'm your professor. My name is Kevin Carlson. And the first thing I want to sort of say is some of you might be a bit anxious about this course and may be afraid that you might fail. All I'm going to say about that is make sure, obviously, you do the work and keep up on the work. That's really going to be an important thing. But also, I want to let you know that I'm here to help you. So, as much as I can, I'm going to support you and make sure you succeed in this class and make sure you understand the material. And so, in terms of the class material, there's going to be lectures. Those lectures are on video. And as much as I can, I try to make those lectures more personable. Also, in terms of doing your homeworks and various assignments, which will be a lot of writing, I'll try to give you some personal feedback on that, and hopefully you'll feel like you're getting some individual attention even though we're online. And so hopefully I can help play a positive role and help you succeed in this class. And on that note, you'll see that in red there on the syllabus, if you have questions about the class, and when it says questions about the class, it could be anything. It could be just the class in general, or about the exams, or about assignments, or about the class material that's in lectures, or how to approach various things in terms of your research that you're going to be doing in this class. Anything like that, any question that you have, uh, I think a great way is to email me and I will respond, of course. You can write your questions, but if you feel like you're not sure how to put it in writing, I'm certainly fine if you make a video like this one. So you can make a video if you want, if you're not quite sure how to write it down. Just make sure that you host that video somewhere and give me the link to the video. Don't send me video files. Those can be very big, and Chafee IT will not like it because those are big files and it costs a lot to send those. So again, if you want, you can make a more personal video with your questions and just give me the link and I'll listen to your video and I'll respond. My responses may actually be on video too. And so instead of having some sort of what seems like a formal answer in writing, sometimes I'll, maybe not sometimes, all the time maybe, I'll make a video and reply to your questions. Also, a great thing about doing that is not only are you learning more, but it's kind of like we're having a conversation even though we're online. Alternatively, if you'd like to talk in person, we can do that on Zoom. So just email me and let me know when your free times are, and we can arrange a Zoom meeting. And, of course, it'll probably be a relatively brief Zoom meeting, but at least we'll have a chance to talk in person. So before I get into the class and what we're going to be doing in the class, I'm going to introduce myself. It's going to be a little bit of a longer introduction, but I think it's relevant for the class, and it's probably good for you to know me a little bit more personally. And so we'll just start off by what to call me. So I don't really care about titles. You can call me Kevin. If you prefer titles, you can call me Professor Carlson or Dr. Carlson. If you want a mixture of formality and informality, you can also call me Professor Kevin or Dr. Kevin. I'm fine with any of those. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't really care about titles, so you can call me Kevin, my first name, if you want to. But if you are going to call me a title, please use the title of Professor or Doctor. Don't call me Mr. Uh, I have a PhD, so do call me Professor or Doctor if you want to use a title. If you don't want to use a title, Kevin's okay also. So just to let you know a little bit about my own background, I grew up pretty poor. Welfare sometimes, food stamps all the time, from my memory, government housing. And in high school, I almost flunked out of ninth grade. So I was very close to being flunked in ninth grade, probably based on grades. I probably should have been flunked, but I guess my school decided to put me forward regardless of the grades that I had. And then I had a transformation where I ended up basically getting all A's as a senior. So I went from almost flunking to getting all A's. And so I won't get into the various mechanisms about how that happened, but I definitely, as a poor kid in my high school, felt neglected. Nobody seemed to care much about me, and I guess as a senior, I found a couple teachers that seemed to care. Um, but that was definitely not true for most of the people in my neighborhood. We were mainly neglected in school, so relatively shaky beginning. And basically, what I did is I sort of slid into community college. Being poor, I never thought that I should go to a 4-year school right away because it cost a lot of money to live somewhere else, etc. And so there was a community college in my hometown, and I ended up going to that community college. In fact, that's my community college. It looks a little bit different now than what it did when I went there, but that's the community college I went to. So I was a community college student also. And I got an associate degree at this community college, and then I transferred to a 4-year school. And the 4-year school that I transferred to, which probably a lot of you will do, is a state school. So I transferred to a state school. You can see that the state that I'm from is not California, although maybe I guess this could be up in the mountains. But you can see by the snow that it was a colder state. It's actually Wisconsin. And so I transferred to a 4-year university, and I got my bachelor's in psychology. And if you're taking this class, there's probably a 99% chance that you are a psych major also. And then after getting my bachelor's degree, I got my started in a master's program in clinical and community psychology. So I'll just sort of say, this is what's relevant here about this class. And so when I was a psych major, I thought, screw research. Who cares about research? I was going to be a therapist, and so I was going to work with people. I was going to be a therapist, and I didn't care about research. And I still remember that I was talking to my advisor. So in a 4-year school, your advisors will tend to be professors. And so I was talking to my advisor, who was a professor, and he was actually a clinical psychologist himself. And I said that I wanted to go to grad school and become a clinical psychologist. And I still remember that he said something like, hey, if you want to go to grad school, you should get involved in some research. I highly recommend it. And I remember thinking then was like, ugh, I don't want to do research. That sounds horrible. And I didn't do it. And so I didn't do any research. I had a lot of applied experiences. So I volunteered at a forensic mental hospital, essentially. So people who are in the criminal justice system, so have been arrested for crimes, but were seen as not responsible for their crimes because of their mental illness. And I also worked in high school, so I worked in a high school program for kids that were needing extra help, and so I had quite a few applied experiences that were quite expensive. Um, but I had no research experience. And what happened was I couldn't get into a lot of grad schools. And probably the grad school that I went to for that master's program in clinical and community psychology, which is at UNC Charlotte, so that's Charlotte, North Carolina, I probably wouldn't get into today because people expect some research. And so even if you think you want to be a therapist, it's very helpful to understand research methodology. For one, it will help you get into grad schools. And number two, uh, to be a good therapist, you need to know research. I'd say that you are actually not a very ethical and not a very effective therapist if you just go and get, let's say, a master's and then you become a therapist and you never read any research. You just use what you learned in school. And you go, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. You don't keep up on the field. You're not going to be a good therapist. And so a good therapist should understand research, should read research to be able to help their clients. And so, at the very least, you should be able to understand research if you're going into the field of psychology. So again, that's the relevance of this class. And so even though you might think that you never want to do research, it'd be nice to understand research because all fields use research to understand how to help people better. And in terms of my own story, so remember as an undergraduate, I thought research was dumb. In fact, I just kind of skimmed through my math classes and stats classes. I did relatively well in them, but I didn't think I knew what I was doing. I could pass the exams, but if you asked me how to do stuff, I don't know if I would be able to do it. And so I was relatively shaky on the research end. But for me, what happened was while I was in this program, I discovered I didn't want to be a therapist. So my story is that very early in this master's program, we were practicing therapy on each other. So other master students, we were doing therapy with each other. So basically, I think that's usually a model. So before you go off and you screw up somebody else, you screw up your friends and classmates first. So um, I shouldn't say screw up. I should probably say make mistakes. So if you're gonna make some mistakes, make mistakes with somebody who can sort of handle it rather than real clients. And so I remember that I was given a case with a fellow student that was very difficult. And I found myself to be emotionally drained every time I had to go through the session. And we didn't have a lot of sessions. There was maybe 5 sessions or so, something like that. And I thought to myself, if I can't handle one session once in a while with a difficult case, how am I going to do this 8 hours a day, 5 days a week? So I discovered pretty early that I wasn't capable of sort of emotionally divorcing myself, if you will, from my clients. And so um, my interest in psychology turned from interest in becoming a therapist to becoming interested in doing research that would help inform people and help people's lives in terms of understanding what's going on with them. And so my life changed here as I discovered that. And I ended up getting a master's in developmental psychology from Cornell University. So that's Cornell, that's in Ithaca, New York. You can see how beautiful it is there. So that was a turning point. So I went from thinking I'm going to be a therapist to wanting to do a little bit more research. I still love psychology. I still love understanding people. I still was interested in helping people, but I was going to help people through research. And so being able to do research has been very helpful. And then after getting my master's, I got my PhD in developmental psychology at UC Santa Cruz. So that's Santa Cruz, up in the Monterey Bay area. And so I got my PhD in developmental psychology. So, PhD is research based, so learned research skills. But while I was in my PhD program, I discovered that although I did like research, I really liked helping people directly. And so a big way of helping people directly was to teach. And so at Santa Cruz, I fell in love with teaching. And so that was a way to work with people directly, to help people directly, to use my research skills and my knowledge of psychology, but to do it in a teaching profession. So I decided to become a professor that emphasized more teaching than doing research. When I say research, publishing things like that, more teaching, working with students. And so I started out by teaching in liberal arts colleges. And so this is actually Rhodes College in Memphis, Tennessee. So I was there for 2 years. and was a teaching professor. But I got a little bit of an itch and I wanted to live overseas. And so I applied to some jobs in Asia. And basically, why I wanted to go overseas and work is that remember, I'm a poor kid. And so even when I was working here, I'm not making a lot of money as a teacher necessarily. And so if I wanted to go overseas, it made sense to me to work because I couldn't just spend a bunch of money and go overseas for weeks and months and things like that. I didn't have money. So one way to do it is to go and live overseas. So I applied to different jobs in Asia, and teaching was part of it, but another big thing was having research and statistics skills. And so I ended up getting a job in Singapore, and I was in educational development, which means you help teachers learn to become better teachers, and institutional research, which basically means you look at data from students and see how they're learning to help improve things, to improve student learning. Uh, and so, again, it's very much focused in on helping people. So I was able to go to Singapore in part because I knew teaching, but a lot more of it had to do with I was able to do research and I was able to do statistics. And so, if you have any inkling that you want to work overseas, being able to do research, being able to use statistics is a big help because research methods and statistics are the same here, same in Asia, same in South America, same in Europe, same in Africa. You could go to any place and research methods and statistics are the same. So again, I'm trying to help you make a connection between this class and some opportunities you might have in the future. If you can do research and do statistics, that will help you get jobs. That will help you get jobs in America. That will help you get jobs in international places also if you're interested in that. So it doesn't have to be your main thing. So, you might love something in psychology. So there's some topics in psychology that you love. You love psychology. That's your main thing. But if you can add knowing research and adding statistics, it can open up the world to you. And the nice thing about that too is if you're, for one, it will give you an advantage. So if you have two people and one person can do research and do statistics, you're going to have an advantage over the person who can't, for sure. And also, it opened up different types of careers. And those careers pay very well. And so I'll talk a little bit more about this in terms of my own career path. But if you're able to do research and statistics, people will pay you a lot of money because a lot of people are afraid of numbers, of math, of statistics. So if you can do it, people will pay you a lot of money. I'm not saying that money should be the motivating factor for it, but if you want to have a career that's meaningful, that helps other people, but also helps you take control of your life, gives you a higher income, that's a nice thing. So that's Singapore, by the way. And so I lived in Singapore for 7.5 years doing this work. And again, this opportunity to go to Asia will open up because I can do research and I know statistics. In addition to knowing teaching and in addition to knowing psychology. And then after living for 7.5 years in Singapore, I moved to Hong Kong. And in Hong Kong, I was doing mainly institutional research. Again, looking at students and how they learn and what helps students learn to help students have a better experience in university. And so I was there for 4.5 years. And again, I was able to go there because I could do research and I could do statistics. I would not get that job in Hong Kong if I couldn't do those things. So again, this was a great opportunity. And so I was in Hong Kong for 4.5 years. That's Hong Kong. And actually, when I was in Asia for those roughly 12 years, I got to travel all over the place. So I got to travel to Australia, I got to travel to Indonesia, I got to travel to Malaysia, to Cambodia, to Thailand, to China, many places. And so, kind of the moral to the story again is if you can do research on statistics, and especially if you're a poor kid like me, it opens up some doors that wouldn't be open otherwise, and can open up the world in some ways to you. And then I decided to come back to the States. And so initially, when I came back to the States, I had some teaching jobs. So that included working at Scripps College as a teacher. But I also was able to use my research skills. So I did research analyst types of jobs at community colleges. So research analyst is sort of like an institutional researcher. So again, what you do is you look at students' data and you figure out what helps students succeed in community colleges. So that type of research really helps other people by helping students learn better in community colleges. And I worked at a couple community colleges. I worked at Moore Park College and Norco College doing this type of work. And these types of jobs were open to me because I could do research methods and statistics. And again, I feel like I'm going on about this, but I kind of want to show you that you can see that here I've moved around the world and moved to different places in the country. And there always has been a job for me. I've always worked full time because I could do research and statistics. I would say that I would not have had full time jobs all the time if I didn't know how to do those things. And what I'll say about the research analyst jobs is that they can pay a lot of money. So at community colleges, if you can do a research analyst job, uh, basically the qualifications for that is a bachelor's and several years of experience. Or what happens with most people is they get a master's in psychology or a related field. And with that master's, they can also become a research analyst. These jobs pay a lot of money. And there's lots of opportunities for promotions in these types of jobs. And so, again, not that money should be your main motivating factor, but if you're going to do a job that helps other people and is intellectually interesting, these types of positions pay a lot of money also. And then I've also taught at community colleges. So obviously, uh, I'm teaching here at Chaffey. I taught full time at Chaffey for 1 year until COVID hit. And I'm teaching um, also in Idaho at the moment. And so basically, my whole main point of sort of presenting these things to you is that because I know research methods and statistics, it opened up all of these opportunities for me in terms of work and also opportunities to travel the world and to see the world. And so, again, I'm not trying to convince you that you're going to be a researcher, but if you can do research and statistics and that's in your pocket in addition to the other things that you're interested in, it will help you. It'll help you find jobs. It will help you find well paying jobs. So I hope as you go through this class, you're not just doing it because, oh, I have to do this because it's required for the major. But I do hope that you're developing skills that you can sell in terms of future positions for yourself as a career. And uh, if you know research methods and statistics, there's lots of different things you can do. All those different types of jobs I showed you, the teaching jobs, the research, institutional research jobs, those things all were leaning heavily on my ability to know research methods and statistics. And in terms of community colleges, by the way, uh, to teach in a community college, you can have just a master's. And right now, if you have a master's and can do statistics, it's going to open up a lot of job opportunities because there's lots of jobs in terms of teaching statistics and research methods because that's a big emphasis now in California, for example. So again, thank you for sort of indulging me in terms of introducing myself. And I know that was a little bit long, but I just wanted to show you the range of things you can do and the range of opportunities that are out there in terms of career and also life experiences if you know research methods and statistics. So hopefully this course will help you get an edge in terms of that, will allow you to do those types of things. And by the way, when you transfer to a four-year university, one of my big recommendations to people that are psychology majors is to get involved in some research. Remember my story where my advisor says you should get involved in some research, and I just laughed it off and said that sounds stupid and boring. I paid for it, and then it took me a while to find out what I wanted to do. So if you get involved in research, it's really helpful in a couple ways. One way is it gives you a mentor. It gives you a close relationship with a professor who can help you in terms of taking classes, in terms of your future career, in terms of their personal network. So getting to know people. So if you want to get an internship, they might know somebody who works in the field, and you can get an internship. So it's very helpful in terms of that. It's helpful in terms of having that on your resume. It's a great experience. It will help you get into grad schools. Also, it will let you know more about psychology. So one way to understand psychology is to get involved in it outside of the classroom. So I highly actually recommend that you become a research assistant for at least a year in your four-year school that you transfer to. And one thing you can do is you can actually do that, arrange that before you transfer. So the semester before you transfer, look up the psychology department, the faculty in the psychology department. Find out what type of research they do. Find one or two professors that are doing research that really interest you and email them and say, hey, well, do it more formally, but say, basically, hey, I'm transferring there next semester. I saw descriptions of your research on the website and it's really interesting. Are you looking for new or additional research assistants, undergraduate research assistants? And if they are interested and they like you, you will have an instant connection. Day one, when you walk into the four-year school that you're going to go to, that department that you're going to major in, psychology, you will know a professor. They will be able to help you. They'll connect you with other people. They can advise you about your classes. You'll have that great personal connection. I think that's a really great thing to have on your first day when you transfer. So anyway, that's my spiel there about the importance of this class, how it can relate to your educational journey, and how it can help open doors, not only in terms of your education, but also in terms of careers. So hopefully you take that to heart. And again, you might be like I was as an undergraduate and think, oh, research is stupid. Why do I want to do that? You never know. So you never know when you might be interested in it. And again, if you are going to be a therapist, understanding, reading the research literature is very important for you to be an effective and ethical therapist with other people. So anyway, that's my spiel. So let's get to the syllabus. So the specifics of this class. So obviously you're on Canvas now, or at least you got onto Canvas to get this video. So you know Canvas will be very important for this online class. Good news, our textbook is free. So that's the link to our textbook. So you can read it online for free. If you really, really, really want a paper copy, there are print copies available through Amazon, and the link is on that website that I have right there. So if you go to that website, you can see how to get paper copies through Amazon, and it's about $10. if you really want a paper copy, if you don't want to read something online. What I'll say also in terms of the textbook, I noticed that our um, bookstore or campus store has an optional textbook listed. There is no optional textbook. The only thing that's needed for this class is this required textbook. So if you went and looked on the bookstore, the campus store, and saw there was an optional textbook, we are not reading that. I guess you could read it, but it's not really going to be linked to our class. So you don't have to spend that extra money. So unless you really, really want that $10 paperback version of the textbook, it's free. So make sure you check your emails. So I'm just going to go through the syllabus a little bit here. So make sure you check your emails. It's a very important way of communicating. Also check Canvas. And so I will make various announcements on Canvas. And so make sure to check those Canvas announcements. That will help you succeed in the class. I'll let you read the course description and the outcomes and objectives. We don't have to go over all of those. You can certainly read those. Important dates, the add date, the drop dates for with a W or without a W are listed here. What I'll say is try to keep up in the class. And so a big key to this class is to work early each week and to keep up. And also I'll say that if you encounter problems, whether those are life problems or questions about the course material, please talk to me sooner than later. So sometimes what I find is that sometimes people are having problems, but they don't tell me until really late. And when I find out really late, it's really hard to do anything about it. So tell me early. Um, Also, you know, the big thing is to also just tell me. So it's not just telling me early, but also just tell me. Sometimes what happens is I know somebody is struggling through the scores that they're getting on the exams or papers, and I eventually contact them and say what's going on. I can see something's up, and they say, yeah, oh, this is happening, but I didn't really want to bother you with it. It's like, no, bother me with it. So make sure you tell me what's going on. I know that sometimes you feel like either, oh, I shouldn't bother this person with this personal problem, or maybe you've had experiences in the past where you did have some problems and you went to a teacher and they said, well, tough luck. You still have to do this stuff. I'm not going to say tough luck to you. I'm going to help you as much as I can. And so if something's going on, let me know. And so you can read the stuff about the uh, assessment and grading. Uh, do know that there's some late consequences. I don't want to be punitive. I don't want to penalize you. But I really want to give you a strong incentive to keep on track with the course. So if you aren't keeping on track with the assignments, it's going to add up and it's going to be difficult in the class. And so I want to give you an incentive to hand things in on time. And as it says here, there's not more work in this class, at least for a lab class. So remember, it's a 4-credit lab class. So there's no more work than a typical lab class. But there's lots of small things you need to do. And the way that I've designed this class is that there's small steps that we're going to take that's going to lead to the big final project in the end. I shouldn't say big final project, but the larger thing we're going to do at the end. But it's not the case that we're just going to not do anything and then all of a sudden there's a big thing to do at the end. There's steps that we're going to take throughout the semester. So each week I'm going to have us take a step towards that. So make sure that you stay on track, because if you sort of avoid some of these smaller assignments and don't concentrate on them, you're gonna end up paying in the end. So if you take each step, then we're going to be at the end pretty easily. But if you don't do those steps and you try to do everything at the end, it's going to be very difficult. So I really have made it so that um, we can easily accomplish things if we stay on track. So this is a lab class, so we have some lab assignments that we'll be doing throughout the semester, and we'll talk more about that later as we get to each lab assignment. Uh, we're going to have an annotated bibliography, so I'm quickly going to say what this class normally is pre-COVID, and I'm going to talk about what this class is during COVID for us. So pre-COVID, and if we were meeting in person, normally what we would do is we would have small groups, and each group would do some sort of research study. You would think of a research question and some hypotheses. You would develop a research methodology, and you would collect data, and then you would analyze those and then write up papers based on your research. So, because of COVID and that we're online, there's going to be some changes to that. So, you will still be doing a research project, a research paper, but you're going to be doing it individually. So, you know that group work can be difficult oftentimes, even if you're meeting in person. But my experience is group work when we're online can be extremely difficult. I've had problems with people trying to connect with each other in online classes. So I say that we're going to drop the group stuff and we're going to have you do some individual work. Also, you're not going to collect data. So normally you would collect data and probably you would collect it from fellow students. But given the nature of an online course, I think that there's some problems that can occur with that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to say this more in another video. There's several data sets that I have from actual research that actual researchers have collected and conducted studies. And you're going to devise your own research questions and hypotheses based on their research. And then we're going to analyze the data from those researchers to answer the questions that you have. So you're going to be doing some of the same things. You're going to be generating research questions, hypotheses, looking at data, statistics, and interpreting those data and statistics. So we're still going to be doing those things. And that's going to be reflected in your research papers. Um, and then in terms of developing skills, in terms of developing research methodologies, in terms of experiments and how do you construct a questionnaire, we're going to have lab exercises for that. So we will have lab exercises where you'll be developing your skills in terms of devising research methodology, but we're going to be doing that as lab exercises. So we're going to be doing the same things, but we're going to sort of separate out the research papers from some of those things where you're going to develop those skills. So hopefully that makes some sense. So in terms, again, of your research paper, we're going to take steps in your research paper. So remember, for your research paper, you're going to look at some set of data that some researcher has collected, and you're going to devise your own research study based on those data. We'll talk more about that in another video. But anyway, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking steps. So the first step in your research paper, that's the big thing from this class, is you're going to be doing an annotated bibliography. So you're going to be looking up research articles and reading them and writing down an annotation about those articles related to your research question. So that will be the first step that we'll do. And again, obviously, we'll talk more about this when that assignment comes up. And then in terms of non-paper stuff, we have 3 non-cumulative exams. Those exams you'll see will occur pretty early in the semester. I want us to get the exams done early so that we can have more time later in the semester for writing your papers. And by the way, the exams will tend to be essay exams, and usually sort of short or maybe medium essay exams, not like things that will be pages and pages for each answer, but shorter answers, medium answers in terms of essays. And those are going to be closed book, closed notes. However, I will provide a study guide. So you'll have a study guide that will help guide your reviewing for each of the exams. So getting back to the papers that you're going to be writing. So the bibliography is the first step. Also, you're going to be doing several paper drafts. So there's two drafts of the paper that are graded. So there's an earlier paper draft and then a final paper draft that are graded. You can see that there's not a lot of points for it, but there's enough that, it gives you some incentive. But the main thing here is for you to get feedback on your paper from me to improve your final paper. And so we'll talk again more about this. So again, it's not like we're going to be going through the semester and all of a sudden you have a big thing that you have to do at the end. We're going to take it step by step. And so that will take the pressure off of us. But again, what I'll say is that makes it really important for you to stay on track. So if you're not on track with the smaller assignments, including the drafts, you're going to really struggle at the end. So if you blow off the draft and say, oh, it's only 25 points, I don't really have time to do that, you're not going to get feedback. You can get feedback like, this paper needs a lot of work. And so that's not going to be very helpful. So the more work that you put in early, the less work you have to do later on, and the better your grade will be. Also for the final paper, you're going to be doing a paper draft of the final paper that somebody in class will peer review it. And so this will be helpful to you in two ways. One is somebody will be looking at your paper and giving you specific feedback on it before you'll hand it in to me. That should help improve your paper. Also, I think it will help improve your paper because looking at somebody else's paper will give you ideas. Oh, they did this. I didn't do that. Maybe I should add something like that to my paper. So this peer review process is meant to help your own paper writing in the end too. And again, we'll talk more about this as we get to that assignment. And then in terms of your research paper, or I should say your research study, there's two big things you're going to be doing. One is the final paper. So again, we talked about steps we're going to take to help you produce the final paper. So it's not just your final paper at the end that you have to cram it all in at the end. We're going to take steps to develop that paper, but the final paper will be worth quite a few points in this class. And then also, in terms of your research project, you're going to present your research in the form of a poster. And we'll talk more about this later. So you're going to have a poster and you're going to make a video presentation of the poster. So we're going to talk more about this later in class, but you're going to be doing not only a final paper, but you're going to be doing a poster slash video presentation of your research also. And again, when I say your research, it's looking at somebody else's data set, deriving some research questions, hypotheses, and then looking at those data to answer those questions. So there's a summary of things that we're doing. You can read these things here. Here's the grading scale. If you have any accommodations for DPS, please let me know. In general, for a class like this, these will tend to be things that are related to test taking. So if you have test taking accommodations, and for an online class like this, it's typically additional time, please make sure that you take care of that through the DPS office. I cannot give you accommodations unless DPS officially has the paperwork and has processed it. So please make sure you do that. Academic integrity. So couple things on this. So make sure you do things like take your own notes from the textbook or other sources. Make sure when you're taking notes, put things in your own words. You don't want to sound like a textbook when you're giving answers. Also, a big key to this class is to start working early. So again, work early each week. So start work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at the latest. Take several days to work through the week's work. That would be helpful, but start early because what happens is if you do things late, it puts a lot of time pressure on you. So, for example, for exams, give yourself plenty of time. Take the exam when you have time to feel like you can be relaxed. I have seen some students start the exam like 1 hour before it's due. That puts incredible pressure on you. Don't do that. Don't put yourself in a time pressure situation. In terms of the exams, again, I don't want to be heavy handed, but this has happened at least once every semester. Is somebody will use the web to cheat. And what happens is if I discover that, you'll get a 0 on the exam. And my experience is that, the exams, I believe, are 100 points in this class. I just want to look at it real quickly. Yep. Losing 100 points is hard to recover. And my experience is that those students who cheat and I catch them and they get a 0 on the exam, they'll end up failing the course because it's hard to overcome those 100 points. So please, 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 when you're taking the exam, if you don't know the answer, take a 0 on the question. Even a 10-point question, or let's say I don't know if we have 20-point questions, but let's say there's a 20-point question. Take a 0 out of those 20 points for that question. Get the other points on the exam. But you can't take a 0 out of 100 for the exam. So please don't use the internet to cheat. Because if you get caught, very likely you won't pass the course. Part of this advice here about not uh, leaving things to the last minute is my experience is when people tend to cheat, use the internet to cheat, is when they feel panicked and rushed. So the big mantra in this class again is work early, work steady, and feel relaxed rather than leaving things to the last minute, not really understanding things because you're trying to rush to learn it, and you feel time pressured to do the assignments, and you end up doing poor assignments or perhaps plagiarizing, which will get you in trouble. So that's my big piece of advice for the course is to work steady. And sometimes, people don't realize online courses are just like our face-to-face courses. So this is a lab class. And if we were meeting in person, we would meet 2 times a week for almost 3 hours each time we meet. So there's also the additional work that you do for your homework and your assignments. And so given that we're fully online, you should be spending at least 10 hours a week on this class. And so I suggest spreading it out over several days. So once in a while, I do see people who try to cram in all the work on Sunday, and that doesn't work well. Those people generally are very anxious, are very nervous, and they tend not to do as well. So start early in the week. Start early in the week and chip away at things. Don't try to cram everything in one day. You're not going to really learn very well when you're doing that. Try to cram in 10 hours in one day. It's not going to work. And so keep that in mind. Keep in mind that as a lab class, you should be spending about 10 hours a week on the material. Again, I do sort of see people that spend less than that, and people that spend less than that tend not to do very well in the class. And the structure of the class is basically Monday to Sunday. And so we start the material on Monday and then we end on Sunday. That's generally what we will do. So again, I recommend working early on things and going at your own pace so that you learn things well rather than rushing things all at the last minute. And, please let me know anything that's bothering you with the class. Any ways that I can help you in the class, I have an open door and an open mind, and so please give me feedback, and I'll do whatever I can to make things better and to help everybody succeed in class. And so here's our class schedule, and so notice it's tentative, so things can change to help everybody in class, but this is basically the plan for the semester. And again, these are tentative dates, and so always check Canvas for the specific due date and due times. And so one thing that I make a note somewhere in the syllabus here is that don't assume that the due time is 11:59. I know that a lot of people use 11:59 as their due dates, but that's not going to be always the case. So always check Canvas for the specific date and time. And so you'll see here that we pretty much every week we have something that we're going to be doing, at least one thing, whether it's an exam or a lab exercise. So I'll make weekly announcements about the work for each week. So I'm not going to go over each week right now, but just see here that in our first week that we have coming up, we have chapter 1, and you're going to be choosing your research question, and that's going to be related to your lab exercise number 1, and I will be making some videos that will help you with that. Do note that it's due on Sunday, and I'm going to be using this to take attendance in class. And so if you don't complete this lab exercise by Sunday, January 16, I will assume that you're not attending class and you may be dropped because of the non-attendance. So please make sure you do that. You can see here in week number 2, we already have exam number 1. So exam number 1 is on chapters 1 through 3. And again, we'll talk more about this as we go through the first couple weeks of class, of course. And then you'll see that what I've done is to help your work on your research project, I oftentimes will give you a week to do significant steps. So you're not doing anything else except working on your research project. So week number 3, you're going to be doing your lit review, which means looking up research articles and making that into your annotated bibliography. So do note that I've made our schedule such that I'm trying to help you as much as possible to develop your research project and your final research paper in steps, so that it's not a lot of pressure. We just do each of the little steps and then do all the little steps, and you're going to be totally fine by the end of the semester. You won't feel rushed or panicked. So you see here that we have again a lab exercise or an exam or some sort of writing each week. And again, I'm not going to go through each of these weeks because we'll go through this as we go through the semester. I do want you to sort of see that we will be finished with our exams by March 27th. So March 27th is our last exam, the third exam. Why? Because I want to give us the rest of the semester to work on your research projects. And so you'll see here that I'm going to be supporting your research projects as we go through each week. So we're going to review statistics, and we're going to make your statistical plan. I'll give you feedback on that. And the last several weeks of class is finalizing your paper. So you're going to actually write half of your paper earlier in the semester. By spring break, I think it is. You'll have at least half of your paper written. But the other half of your paper is going to be written sort of in that last 3 weeks of class. And you'll see here that I give you a week to work on your poster. I'll give you a week to do the peer review of your paper, and you'll be finalizing your paper and submitting it during the final exam period. And so that's the schedule, and you can see the schedule. I tried to make it so that we take each of those small steps each week. And I don't think any week will feel like there's a ton of work. But each week you want to keep up and make sure that you do that work so that you don't have a backlog. If you have a backlog of work, that creates some problems. And in terms of student resources, this stuff is in. Oops, sorry about that. This is an old class. This is our class. So you'll see here at the top of our class is the student toolkit. So if you go into that, it will show you various resources that will help you. So resources related to Canvas, resources related to classes, and also resources that can help you. So like the food pantry and other resources beyond just your classes that can help you deal with life in addition to your classes. So if you have questions about the various things that Chaffee College provides students to help them, please look at the student toolkit. You'll see that there's a communication plan and the syllabus is here. And so if you haven't looked at the syllabus yet, it is right here in Canvas. And so that's it for the introduction video. I know it's a bit long, it's about an hour, but hopefully that will help contextualize class and show you why it's important to learn research methods in psychology. And also just gives you a layout about what we're going to be doing in the class and how to succeed in class. So again, on a final note, I'm here to help you. I want you to succeed in class, and so please let me know how I can help you. And if you're having problems with the class material or in life in general that's affecting the course, please let me know. Don't stay quiet. Don't stay silent. Let me know what's going on. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll be making individual videos each week for each week's work. So I'll be making a video soon about week number 1. So take care, and I will talk to you in that week number 1 video.